Alright, what's up everybody? In this video, I'm going to be going over why mortgages in Canada will likely be getting cheaper. I'm That Agent Kelly. I post Canadian real estate content. I talk about investing, and I talk about my local market here in Vancouver, British Columbia. I post every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. So if you get any value or entertainment from these videos, all that I ask is you thumbs up and subscribe. And hey, I get a lot of people reaching out to me through this channel and my other social media platforms like TikTok and Instagram. If you want to be one of those people, I do not bite. Just scroll down into the description, click on my Calendly link, and you can book yourself right into my calendar. Anyways, without any further ado, let's get into this video. Alright, so mortgages in Canada may actually be getting cheaper going forward now, and because this is a super complex subject matter, I'm going to start off by just kind of explaining things how I understand them. And then I'll get into why mortgages will probably be getting cheaper. So first off, I'm going to start off by talking about how variable rate mortgages work and how fixed rate mortgages work. So first off, variable rate mortgages, the interest rate that you get for a variable rate mortgage is based off of the prime rate. And the prime rate is based off of the overnight lending rate, which is controlled by the Bank of Canada. So the Bank of Canada actually controls the interest rate for variable rate mortgages. Now, each lender may have a different discounted rate off of the prime rate. So for example, Scotiabank, and these aren't real numbers, Scotiabank may have a 0.5% discount off of the prime rate. So if prime rate is 6, you can get a 5.5% variable rate mortgage with Scotiabank, whereas BMO might have a 0.75 discount off of the prime rate, where you might get 5.25 at BMO instead of Scotiabank. Now, these are not actual figures. I'm just giving you an example. These do not correlate to Scotiabank and BMO's interest rates whatsoever, just purely for example's sake. Now, fixed rate mortgages are actually based off of the bond market. So whatever the yields are that the bond market is offering, usually there's a spread of, I believe it's about 2%. So if you can get, 3% return on your bond yields, you can bet that fixed rate mortgages are usually going to be around 5%. Now, this isn't always the case. That spread may differ. Everything's changing all the time. Some banks may have a larger spread than other banks, but this is just strictly rule of thumb, just letting you guys know how they come up with these interest rates at these banks and all of these lenders. So to explain this, now I'm no expert on this subject, by the way. I'm just trying to reiterate this to you guys in layman's terms and how I understand it. So if I get something wrong, please feel free to correct me in the comments. But how I understand this is I correlate bonds to a dividend stock. So let's say you buy a dividend stock, $100 for one share, that offers $10 per share as a dividend. That is a 10% dividend payout. You buy a share for $100, they're paying you $10 per share to hold that share per year. Now, what happens is if the price of that stock goes to $200, unless the company ups their dividend, what ends up happening is the dividend yield goes from 10% to 5%. Now it costs $200 to buy the share, but the dividend yield is still only $10 a share. So it actually ends up being a 5% dividend yield after the price of the stock goes up. So to relate this to bonds, as the demand for bonds increases, there are more people wanting to purchase bonds. Typically, the price for them goes up. And just like a dividend stock, as the price to purchase a bond goes up, the yield that you get for holding that bond starts to go down. So why is this important? It's important because you have to like and subscribe. This is important because bond yields have been steadily decreasing since about mid-August now. I'll pull up a chart right here and you can have a look for yourself. And the reason why bond yields have been decreasing, like I said before, is because the demand for bonds has been increasing. And the reason why the demand for bonds has been increasing is because as inflation has started to come down and the future outlook for inflation is starting to look better, the yields on bonds have started to become more attractive for investors. Now, previously, when inflation has been running at 7% and there was no, light at the end of the tunnel for when inflation was going to start coming down or anything like that, why would you buy a bond that returns 4% when inflation's running at 7%? You are going to net lose 3% every year on those bonds. So previously, bonds were super unattractive. But now with the future outlook of inflation actually rolling over and continuing to come down, that 4% or 3% yield is starting to look decent to investors. So investors are starting to see bonds as a safe haven for their capital. Now, it may end up not being a good return, but nothing really right now is a good return. The stock market's selling off, real estate's tanking, Bitcoin's tanking, everything's tanking, and at least if you put your money in a bond that returns 3%, 3.5%, 4%, whatever it may be, at least you're not really losing money if inflation comes down. That's my thought process anyways. I could be completely wrong on that. So here is where things get interesting and how mortgages are actually probably going to get cheaper. So it's speculated that the Bank of Canada has finished their rate hike cycle. Maybe they're not, who knows, but we're getting decently close, at least it seems that way. So what's happening now is that even if the Bank of Canada continues to hike interest rates, what's going to end up happening is that anytime Bank of Canada hikes interest rates from here on out, it's actually going to improve the future outlook of inflation. Right? So if they hike rates another 0.5% at the beginning of next year, the outlook for inflation is actually going to improve. We've come to this balancing point or this tipping point where inflation's coming down, and every time they hike rates here on out, people are going to be like, okay, well, inflation's going to really come down now. So even if they do end up hiking rates, what will likely happen is that more investors will be incentivized to purchase bonds, which will push up the price of bonds, which will subsequently push down the yield on bonds, which should lower fixed rate mortgages. So although variable rate mortgages may continue to increase, anyone who's buying a home right now or in the next couple months, anybody taking out a new mortgage basically will have the option of getting a fixed rate mortgage, which should actually be cheaper than variable rate mortgages going forward. Right now, they're already cheaper, but they could get even more so cheaper than variable rate mortgages in the future here. Now, there are some downsides to getting a fixed rate mortgage, of course. Like the penalty to break a fixed rate mortgage is exponentially more expensive than it is to break a variable rate mortgage. Now, I'm not a mortgage broker, but I know the penalty to break a variable rate mortgage is 3 months of interest. So it's usually a couple grand, maybe 5 or 6 grand now that interest rates are a lot higher. But the penalty to break a fixed rate mortgage can be absolutely disgusting. I don't know exactly what it is right now, but I've had clients who've broken fixed rate mortgages and paid $60,000 to break a fixed rate mortgage, 15 grand, 18 grand, whatever it might be. So if you are taking out a fixed rate mortgage, you better make sure that you are going to live there for whatever the term of that fixed rate mortgage you take out is. Now, something you can opt into if it makes sense and the interest rate makes sense. You may want to opt into a 1 to 3 year term fixed rate mortgage, as 6 out of 10 people will break their fixed rate mortgage before the end of their 5-year term. If you opt into 1 to 3 years, you have a lot better chance of not breaking that mortgage. So just something to think about. I think fixed rate mortgages are going to get cheaper in the future here, which is an excellent thing for real estate in my opinion. But if you are going fixed, just make sure that you're not going to break that fixed rate mortgage. Talk to your mortgage broker, talk to your bank, talk to whoever. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you on the next one.